Hello and welcome to another episode of Backyard Catch Podcast. This is Nick Roby, and I'm once again joined by our good friend, Mr. Will Harper. Mr. Harper, how are you doing on this fine day of fall, October, and 90 degrees?
Ugh. I'm great right now. I'm in the air conditioning.
Mm.
Going outside, walking my dog earlier was brutal. But hey, we live in the South. That's what we signed up for. So we'll eventually hit fall, like maybe by the time we hit Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, one can hope that eventually that football will get to have some cooler, crisp air. One can just dream of it.
I'll still be wearing T-shirts and Williams Brice come 1st of November. Guarantee it.
Yeah, it's probably, especially in Columbia.
It is always 10 degrees hotter in Columbia, it seems like.
Yeah, I think because there's so much pavement down there, just so much for bouncing off.
Yeah, it's the armpit of the South is what I've heard of it referred to before.
I've heard that as well, but I'll let you say it. Um, no, yes, we had another fun week this week with football, with NFL. What were there any games or anything that really stood out to you from this past week?
Yeah, I want to talk about the Philly Green Bay game from last Thursday. So coming into it, Green Bay was undefeated, but I mentioned before they were like the ugliest undefeated team. Like
Yeah,
they were undefeated, but they hadn't really looked good doing it. And this was probably the game that their offense has looked the best, but they still took a loss. My boy Devontae finally showed out a little bit. Unfortunately, he hurt his toe at the end of the game. He's probably going to be out maybe a week, or actually probably a couple weeks, which sucks, but it is what it is. But yeah, the offense looked pretty good. I mean, the running game wasn't great. Philly did a pretty good job shutting down the run game, but Philly's pass defense, whew, not too good at all. But yeah, Philly hung in there and actually ended up getting the win.
I know they definitely seemed like they needed that to get back in, get back into the conversation. Yeah, it was. I agree. Green Bay they were undefeated, but they did seem like they're kind of stumbling kind of into it, and so I think there's things they can work on for sure. But yeah, losing Devontae Adams for a couple weeks at least is gonna hurt for sure. But it was nice to see him have a game that we thought he could.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And one game too that was really interesting for me, just in conflicting. I know just you as a Panthers fan, we're keeping up with this, but Panthers Texans was really interesting of just having guys that I cheer for, and then usually I'm rooting for the Panthers too, but then also that I don't have the some of those players on my team. I'm actually like playing against a couple of them. So you're like rooting against them at the same time.
Right.
It's a weird set of feelings of okay, like I don't want this guy to do well. Okay, I don't want DeAndre Hopkins to get a bunch of yards, which he did. He actually had a really like lower game than normal, but that whole dynamic is really interesting. I was I was impressed too with I feel like Kyle Allen is really stepping up his game, like he's not gonna be one of the top guys in the league right now, but just the way his composure, like that third down play when they're driving to kind of take the lead and seal the game, he like spins away from JJ Watt and then throws this strike for a first down. There's just different plays like that were really impressive. And then it was interesting. I don't know if you saw this, but a reporter asked Deshaun Watson after the game, like why they didn't take more downfield shots and like having him like break down how the Panthers were in cover four and like you have these
Yeah.
safeties in the top and then you got Luke Kuechly in the middle who's like eats up everything. He's like, well, we try to beat him on the double post, but I just missed a couple throws and you just try to take the best you can, but there wasn't as much room. Like it seems like there's more room, but he's like, really, there's only so much we can do with how good they were playing too.
Right. And it's kind of like it really doesn't happen in sports much where these reporters ask these ridiculous questions that they usually get answers like, we didn't play up to what we should, or like they don't go into details. And to actually hear him go into details, which he probably kind of did in spite of just kind of the way he was asked the question.
Yeah,
But to like go into that much detail of it, it was pretty sweet to hear. Like all the like how he remembered all of that stuff from the game and all the coverages. and just everything that happened. It's pretty cool. Um, I was gonna say about the game. Oh, okay. So they've already announced that Kyle Allen's going to be starting again next week when the Jags come into town. The
Mm,
week following that, they go to London to play the early game against the Bucks. After
right.
that, they have a bye week. So there's 2 more games and a bye week. So we know Allen's starting this week. I would imagine that Allen's also going to start in London.
In
I don't
London.
think
Yeah.
they're going to bring Cam back, especially with the bye coming the next week. So
Yeah.
hypothetically, let's say that the Panthers can somehow win these next 2 games. Going into the next week, when Cam could potentially be healthy,
Mm-hmm.
would you play an 0-2 Cam Newton or a 4-0 Kyle Allen if Cam says he's healthy?
How healthy is Cam? Like if you're gonna give a percentage, like what would you?
Well, I think that based on what I kind of know about the situation, Cam didn't really like he's been playing hurt, and the way he's going to go forward now is he's not going to play until he feels like he's ready.
Mhm.
So if he comes out and says that he's ready in week 8 or whatever it is, yeah, week 8, what do you do? Do you play the guy that's 4-0 as a starter, or do you play the guy that's 0-2? But granted, he was hurt and he's been your franchise quarterback for the past 8-9 years. Like, what kind of
Isn't he in a
tough situation is that?
he's in a contract here too, isn't he?
Well, he's got next year on his contract, but if the Panthers cut him, then they would have to pay him $21 million, and it's only a $2 million dead cap. So this could potentially be his last year with the
Yeah,
Panthers.
I think I think what it is that unless Kyle Allen like really balls out to where he's like, he's so hot that like how do you like stop him? Saying he's throwing for 300 yards a game, 3 touchdowns every game type of a thing. I think you have to at least try Cam Newton again. Um, just because he's been your franchise quarterback, and it's really hard to get one. And just to kind of see, like, is there still stuff there that's worth investing in, Because say you're thinking about
Right.
cutting him, and say you give him a couple more games and it's still kind of a stinker, then you're like, okay, I guess it gives you some more stuff. Because I think the way he's been playing the past couple years is kind of a little bit more. It's just the reality of where he's been right now versus like MVP a few years ago. So
Right.
I think you play him a little bit more, but if he's still not doing like the leash is shorter for sure, and I think you just want to see what you've got left with him.
Right. I
That's
think it's a really interesting predicament if that were to be the case. Now, if they come out and they lose one or both of the next 2 games and Cam says he's healthy, I think it's a no-brainer. Like, okay, Cam's our starter. He says he's healthy. We're going to at least put him in there. But if somehow they do go 2-0 over the next 2 weeks and Kyle Allen's, well, I guess he'd be 5-0 as a starter because he won the meaningless game last year in the last week of the season against the Saints backups.
yeah.
But he'd be undefeated as a starter. And yeah, I think it'd be a tough little situation. Another game that I want to hit on is the New England Buffalo game.
Mm.
So this New England offense has been untouchable this year. This New England defense has been outstanding. And then Buffalo, I mean, they held the offense down pretty good bit and only lost by 6. Josh Allen exited with was it a concussion, I think?
Yeah, I think
So
you're
yeah,
right.
he got hurt. But they hung in there right with the Patriots. It's been by far the toughest game the Patriots have been in this year.
Hmm.
And Buffalo, I mean, they look pretty legit. I mean, it's the only loss they have, and it's by 6 to New England. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's a nice little resume they have there. A fourth of the way into the season.
it's pretty great, and especially when all things pointed to Frank Gore staying on my bench, and then he goes out and rushes for 109 yards against the Patriots. So,
And hits the 15,000 career mark, which
yeah.
is absurd. He's only like the 3rd or 4th player to ever do it.
Yeah, I mean it's impressive. It's really hard to get those kind of numbers. You have to be running for that really long, and It's pretty crazy that he feels like he's been there for forever, but he's always
Yeah,
just
I remember when he was at Miami. I was like in fifth grade. It seems like, but
I,
yeah, he's been doing it for a long, long time.
I feel like he's gonna be sore for a long time for the rest of his life. Just all those hits you take as a running back.
And
But
what's amazing about it is that like I remember in college he tore his ACL or something. But he had a pretty tough injury, and when he got into the league, he was kind of injury prone. But like for the
Mhm.
past 7, 8 years, he's just been rock solid. Like he doesn't get hurt anymore. And you would think the older you get, the more injury prone you get, but it's kind of been the opposite with him. He's
Yeah,
found the fountain of youth. He's got a genie somewhere granting him wishes to stay young.
yeah.
So
That's good. And then yeah, hopefully he'll keep playing out some more. And then one more game I wanted to mention because I caught the end of this one, but was the Chiefs and the Lions. Like this was a back and forth crazy game. You had uh the Lions driving on the goal line. Kerryon Johnson's trying to get more of those goal line situations. Gets the ball, fumbles on the goal line. The Chiefs take it back to take it for a defensive touchdown. Go and take the lead. They've been bouncing back and forth. The Lions, I don't know if it's Galladay or not, but they throw a touchdown. He drags his feet just barely. They go ahead with like 2 minutes to play, and the Chiefs need it's like 30-27, and the Chiefs need a touchdown to win. Like you don't get that far. And then Mahomes just led this really. I was just impressed with the way. I haven't gotten to watch a whole lot of him. I've watched some, but when they're on those out of market games, you don't always get to watch.
right,
And he just led a really impressive drive that was just very methodical, but also took a lot of time off the clock. And they just let him down, and he just helped him get that touchdown with seconds left in the game. So I think it was impressive to see not just like these big like bombs, which is good, but just to see the quarterback methodical, like we're gonna drive down to win the game, and knowing like what was the best play and all that stuff too, and even not throwing any touchdowns either. That's the crazy part is that
right,
it felt like it was an impressive quarterback game for him. I felt like.
right. So that's not Mahomes like at all. He's throwing 50, 60-yard bombs week in and week out to either Hardman or Robinson or Watkins or somebody. They're catching these huge touchdowns. He's throwing 3 to 5 a week, it seems like. And then to have a game where just wasn't all there, he still had over 300 yards, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the focus on the ground game more, and Darrell Williams got a couple scores. And I guess, yeah, Shady got a score too. But to see that and see him actually win a game on the ground was pretty cool. That play with Kerryon Johnson was weird because
It
like
was.
everybody was just standing around and all of a sudden he just takes off running and the refs are like, we're not gonna blow the whistle yet. And then
Yeah.
it's just gone. So it was I didn't see it live. I saw it on like a game break or whatever.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then just to see it happen and everybody just kind of standing around, all of a sudden they take off running the other way. And I was like, man, that's why you play until you hear the whistle blow.
I know. Good old Bashab Breeland.
Took it back to the house.
Oh, I
The
know.
biggest upset of the week was definitely the Bucks going into Los Angeles and
Mhm.
upsetting the Rams.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. That not just upsetting, but like they won 55-40. Like they scored 55 points on that Rams defense too.
Right. Crazy.
Hmm.
All right, you ready to hop on some players
Let's
from
do
last
it.
week?
Yeah.
All right, so this is the first week that I have a theme. So my theme this week is going to be players that balled out and had great stats, but did not find the end zone.
Mm.
And it was like 2 players in that I realized this, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll make it work for the other 2 as well. So my quarterback is going to be Matt Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Falcons lost this week to the Titans, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, 24-10. And so I follow a lot of Braves, like beat writers and other things like that on Twitter. but they're also Falcons fans because, I mean, it's just an Atlanta thing. So to see them just completely incinerate the Falcons, it was pretty funny. But Matt Ryan ended up with 397 pass yards, so almost 400, which is a ton of passing yards. He also added 18 rush yards, but no touchdowns, which has kind of been Matt Ryan's thing going back in the past. Like up until the end of last year, the running joke on Julio Jones was that he's going to get you 130 receiving yards a week, but he's going to get no touchdowns. He's kind of their end of last year and the beginning of this year, he's kind of put that persona aside, scored some touchdowns. But I remember like pretty much the first half of all of last year, he might have had like 1 or 2 touchdowns.
Right.
So, yeah, he'd go out, he'd ball out, he'd dominate between the 20s. Once he got in the red zone, they just didn't look his way. So I'm going with Matt Ryan as my quarterback.
No, it's a good choice. And also what's crazy, too, is he threw for almost 400 yards, and they only scored 10 points. You know, like them as a team, they just didn't seem to execute in the red zone and really get points. So for me, I chose Jared Goff from that Rams and Bucks game. I mean, they scored 40 points themselves. Their defense just gave up a lot of points, too. And Goff, I picked, just his numbers are crazy when you think about it. He went 45 for 68, 517 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw 3 picks and did have a fumble. But the thing I wanted to point out was, especially, he attempted 68 passes, which I think is like the 3rd most all time. And I mean, 500 yards in any level of football it's a lot of yards.
For sure.
And to be that accurate too, with all of that. So that was it, just for the sheer gaudiness of the yards and the attempts. That's why I went with Goff.
For sure. All right. My running back is. So this was the second one when I was doing my list, and when I realized that I had 2 that didn't have any touchdowns. And it's somebody that. Do you have players that you just feel gross about?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing really against them. Like, I have nothing against this guy. Actually, I like the way he runs. I really like the way he ran in college. But it's just something about him that it just feels gross. Either having them on your fantasy team or whatever. But it's Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just he plays for the Jaguars. But this week he had 225 rushing yards. Additional 20 receiving yards. He really balled out for the Jags in their comeback win over the Broncos. Did you watch any of that game?
No, I didn't get to watch that one.
Gotcha. It wasn't the game on here, but at the end of the game, like if your game is like the first or second one to end in the window, they'll like go into other games that are close. You can see them. So I got to sit in at the Jacksonville Denver game, and it was actually pretty fun. But yeah, Fournette balled out this week, 225 on the ground, 20 through the air. So against my own intuition and cleanliness, I chose Leonard Fournette.
Sometimes you gotta take one for the team, you know.
Yeah.
Nice. So I went with my namesake this week at running back. I went with a Nicholas Chubb from the Cleveland Browns.
Great choice.
Yeah, he had 20 rushes for 165 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a cool little 18 yards receiving as well. And he balled out, especially against the Ravens defense, who are known for having a strong defense. And at home, they just like were committed to the run game with this, and especially when they get up and they're trying to protect a lead, he really just kept pounding away, which is really what he and Michelle would do at Georgia, is that they would just pound and grind with the run game and just wear people down. And I think it shows that this Browns offense can be really dangerous when they have all these pieces, because even Odell Beckham, he only had 2 catches for 20
Yeah,
yards.
he didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything. I do love when you pull up the Cleveland Browns thing. The first video that pops up is OBJ upset and lost his earring in altercation. That's fun. But just saying how impressive that is, that there's so many options that are really potentially there for them. But I do think Chubb is really going to be the main back. But what's also interesting with the Browns too is they'll eventually get Kareem Hunt too. So
Right.
you've got him as well, which he might be. I feel like when guys are gone for a long time, due to suspension or just being out for a long time, like their numbers turn out to be a little different. Like they're still good, but maybe not as good. So I do wonder in how many touches, but still for this week, Chubb balled out for sure.
Oh yeah, I have him on my. So the league I've been in the longest, I have him in that league, and we do that one through Yahoo. So I have like one platform through Yahoo, one on Sleeper, one on ESPN. So I got all these different things to check week in and week out. But Yahoo actually sends you like scoring updates.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point, like I would just look down, and then it said Nick Chubb 1 yard touchdown. I'm like, all right, great. A little bit later, Nick Chubb 20-yard touchdown, and then I finally got the Nick Chubb 88-yard touchdown rush, and I was like, got this win in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that 88-yarder was a beauty.
That was pretty nice. And also, just for a little running back shout out, since we're on running backs, in my game this week, I was up by 23, almost like 24 points, and my opponent had just one guy left. He had James Conner left to play on Monday night, and he needed him to score like 24 points. He scores 22.5.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was very close because he had 42 yards rushing, but then also 83 yards receiving and a touchdown. It was cutting it close.
Yeah,
you
were sitting a little tight there.
Yeah.
Last night.
So, but
we both still undefeated.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Both won our matchups.
No shame in fantasy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have the most points. It just matters if you have the most points against your opponent that week.
That's right. A little update on the trade last week too. I ended up accepting my portion of it, but the guy who was actually trading away McCaffrey did not go through with the trade and traded him straight up for Joe Mixon, Denard Robinson, and 2 first-round picks in next year and the year after his rookie draft. So honestly, I don't blame him because that's probably a better deal. But in that trade that he declined with us, he would have gotten Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette.
So
it really cost him this past week. But yeah, long term, he probably made the better bet. But it's kind of funny that your running back and my running back are the 2 running backs that he would have gotten for CMC in that trade that didn't go through.
Yeah.
So thus far tonight, my phone is not blowing up. My watch isn't vibrating. No trade offers yet. So night's still young. We'll see.
So yeah. No.
All right, moving on to the receiver. On Thursday night, I texted Nick, and I was like, I have my receiver of the week. It's been a long time coming. It's Davante Adams. He had 10 catches for 180 yards. Like I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, he hurt his toe there at the end, and he wasn't in the game for the most crucial part of it whenever they were down, I think even on the 1 yard line, and they had 4 consecutive incompletions. I mean, they should have tried to run at least once, but it's just my opinion. But yeah, 10 for 180. They made it a point to get him the ball. He was just open all the time in the secondary, just burning people, juking them out. Just found ways to be open to beat the coverage that Philadelphia was throwing at him. So I said it on Thursday, and I'm sticking with it. Davante Adams, my receiver of the week.
There you go.
Well soon, Davante. I said, get well soon, Davante. I need you back.
Yes, we do. You definitely need him back because you have him on every team.
No,
yeah, I don't like when guys get injured like that. but I chose this week. I chose in the Bucks game as well, but I chose on the opposite side. I chose Chris Godwin as my wide receiver. He had 12 receptions for 172 yards and 2 TDs. Really just going off and on the defense. I mean, Winston really had a game, and I don't even think people really expected this from the Tampa Bay offense. I mean, knowing that there's potential, but not like this, especially in a game against a good Rams defense. So Godwin, who I think has been hurt off and on too, he even got 14 targets too. So even could have gotten a couple more. But just impressive week on the road and balling out.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he and Mike Evans are like two of the top 3 or 4 receivers in fantasy football right now, which is crazy because they're on the same team, and Jameis is their quarterback. But that's the Bruce Arians effect, like in full force. Bruce Arians said in the offseason that he didn't plan on taking Chris Godwin off the field, and he's proven it because Chris Godwin is balling out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on to the tight ends, rounding it out with another tight end, another player that failed to find the end zone. And part of the reason that he failed to find the end zone is because his quarterback failed to find the end zone that I talked about earlier, and it's Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper has been great this year. Now, you would think in an offense with Julio and Calvin Ridley and Devontae Freeman, who's a pretty good pass-catching back, Mohamed Sanu, like where would the targets be for a tight end that's like not even – he's not a highly regarded tight end. He's not like a Travis Kelce or Zach Ertz or somebody like that. But he's making a name for himself. 9 for 130 is an outstanding stat line, especially for a tight end that's been kind of a bleak landscape in fantasy. Like if you have one of the top 4 or 5 tight ends, then you have a huge leg up on everybody else. And Hooper's working his way up into that category.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a gap between the first few and the rest of the league. I know I'm in that boat right now, trying to. I feel like I'm playing tight end by committee right now, personally. But yeah, no, he had a great week. And listen, tight end's just being about consistent too, just being that open guy and just getting whether or not they can get the ball. So this week, going. I guess my theme as it's kind of playing out is I just picked between only 2 games from the weekend because I'm going back to the Browns and Ravens game. And then, as Will and I were talking before the podcast, just felt like to keep up the theme of back-to-back weeks of picking a tight end that we haven't really heard of as much unless you're super into NFL and fantasy football. And also, he has a 3-name full name, which always is a plus. So I took Ricky Seals-Jones.
And one of the names is an animal. Makes it even better.
Even better. He only had 3 receptions, but it was for 82 yards and a touchdown with a long of 59 yards. And he caught all of his targets. So just being that consistent guy for Baker Mayfield, but really just had a great week. And listen, tight end's about you taking advantage of the opportunities that they give you. And the Browns, they're going to have opportunities to spread the ball around. So, but that's my pick of the week, Ricky Seals-Jones.
Nice. RSJ.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about some upcoming games from this coming weekend. Let's talk about the Thursday night game first, the Rams and the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Pair of NFC West teams, which the NFC West has 3 legit teams it's looking like. The Niners are the last undefeated team in the NFC, and then the Rams and the Seahawks are both 3-1. So the Rams Seahawks going at it. We get Goff versus Wilson. Hopefully another high scoring affair. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Another game that I want to hit on is on the very opposite end of the spectrum, the Monday night game.
Mm-hmm.
They're making up for last night's slobber knocker with the aforementioned 49ers against the Cleveland Browns. So if you would have told me 2 years ago the Browns versus the Niners on Monday Night Football would have me excited, I would have called you a bald-faced liar. But it does. Like, I'm excited to see Debo. I'm excited to see Garoppolo and this Niners offense and even their defense, which has been kind of the big surprise of all of it.
Yeah.
Go up against Chubb and Baker and Odell and Landry and all those weapons that they have on offense. And then their defense led by sack artist Myles Garrett. So that's got me pretty excited. What about you? What's a couple games you're looking forward to?
No, that's me good. Also, they've definitely been pushing the Browns to be on national TV. I feel like a lot. Whenever we talk about this, it's definitely like Browns on Monday night, Browns a Sunday night football game. I mean, yeah, the Thursday night's gonna be big for sure. To see how that kind of plays out. Another one that looks big too is just you got two perennial powerhouses, and we've got the Packers and Cowboys. 4:25 game, and they're both 3-1, and both are looking for a bounce back week too. Which always adds another factor to that. I think we're starting to get. This is where it gets interesting with Aaron Rodgers because they've got a new offense and it's been. I feel like they were still in the honeymoon phase of it, like trying to tiptoe and kind of feel it out. But now with Devontae out too, I kind of feel like Rodgers is about to go off pretty soon. He hasn't really had those big weeks that we've kind of expected. So I don't know if it's against the Cowboys or not, and with not having Devontae, but I just kind of feel like he's getting ready for just to start chucking the ball all over the place.
Right.
And it could be against the Cowboys. Who knows? But that'll be an interesting game for sure. And then another one too. I think just wanting to see, like, for example, you keep talking about the Bucks, but can the Bucks keep it up against in division with the Saints? Can they keep the offense up what they're doing, or is it like fluky what they were doing this past week?
Right.
And then you have like the Titans and the Bills. The Titans kind of won when it was a little more unexpected, and the Bills, can the Bills keep up this like defense, or has this first month really just kind of been them taking people by surprise, and then they come back down to earth a little bit? Like you have some of those kind of. I feel like now that we're getting into October, you're starting to get a little bit more separation from teams as they're starting to feel themselves out, and you're starting to get more of the who are the real contenders this year and who are teams that are really more of middle of the pack or lower this year. So that we've got a couple of those kind of games this week, I feel like.
Gotcha. Yeah. I've got 2 games to file under never would I ever want to watch these games. One is the 4-0 Patriots versus the 0-4 Redskins. That's going to be total annihilation.
That's going to be bad, yeah.
And the other one is the 0-3-1 Arizona Cardinals versus the 0-4 Cincinnati Bengals. Now, there's actually probably going to be some offense in that game, a lot more so than the Bears and Raiders game that's also on, which is a Khalil Mack revenge game. But
oh yeah,
the Arizona-Cincinnati match, not looking forward to it.
Yeah. It'd be fun to see if Kyler can put up some numbers, but other than that.
Yeah, one should get their first win on the season. We could see another tie.
I was going to say, where do we see another?
It's already happened this year. Has any team ever tied twice in the same year?
Not that I know of, but I'd have to look that up. But it's definitely possible. I think those are strong candidates for it because you got a lot of points, and then you got to have some miscues too. Like both teams have an opportunity to win. One misses a field goal, one fumbles it, and then they just run out of time. So the opportunity is definitely there.
For sure.
Yeah, I like it. So
that's all I got for this week.
There we go. I like it. Well, guys, that's it for us. Thanks for tuning in this week. We really appreciate it. And just remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. Share with your friends, BeckerCatch.com. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. So remember just to follow us and share. But we thank you so much. And for now, we're signing off.